Great honor to be here. It's been approximately 35 years since Brian McCabe hired me to help start the Cochlear Implant program in Iowa, and I thought my job was to prove that cochlear implants did not work. I was wrong. So this talk is about patients with tinnitus. So many of our cochlear implant candidates actually have tinnitus, and many of them report a benefit on their tinnitus just after getting a cochlear implant. But not everyone. Some remain bothersome even after getting a cochlear implant. And we also know that just like in hearing impaired patients without cochlear implants, playing some low-level background sound can be effective to reduce the bothersome effect of tinnitus, and we've done that, of course, in cochlear implant patients as well. So now, of course, our phones are also computers, and there are many different sounds that can be uploaded from your phone, and this is done widely with hearing impaired patients with hearing aids. So lots of different sounds are available. Pink noise, heavy rain, waterfalls, crickets. Our hearing aid patients all like different sounds. They have different patients. But of course, cochlear implant patients do not hear normally, so it would be interesting to know if these can also help them and also not get in the way of their understanding speech. So this is our purpose for our trial here. So we actually have two different studies in this trial. First of all, we have patients who came into the clinic and we tried some different sounds. And then secondly, we sent some of them home for several weeks, and they were done in a randomly assigned crossover design. So some of them got one sound first and then a second sound, and then the other half got the reverse order. And I'll explain what those control conditions are in a minute. So when they came into the clinic, they rated the loudness and annoyance of their tinnitus on a scale from 0 to 100. We played them a variety of different sounds, and they rated the acceptability of those sounds. And then they chose which ones they thought would be the most acceptable to them to listen to in the background. We then completed a 5-minute trial in the clinic. We were also worried that playing a background sound in a cochlear implant patient might interfere with their speech perception ability, so we tested that. And we also administered 2 questionnaires that we have used over the years, the Tinnitus Handicap Questionnaire and the Iowa Tinnitus Primary Functions Questionnaire. So in the clinic visit, they listened to lots of different sounds, and these are the sounds that were the most widely accepted as being helpful. One of them was heavy rain. And of course, these are different for different patients. They don't have to hear it. These are cochlear implant patients. It might not sound like a waterfall or crickets, but the question is, could it be acceptable to have in the background when they're living their life and working and listening with their cochlear implant? So the average acceptability of these sounds was 82%. Heavy rain being the most acceptable one. So in the clinic visit, we tried to measure their loudness on a scale from 0 to 100, and we measured that before they got the sound, and then after they listened to the chosen sound that they wanted to. And you can see there's lots of individual differences across different participants, but for some of them, their pre-trial loudness was 90, and only 10 after they listened to the sound. Now, it doesn't work for everybody, but it is very helpful for lots of these patients. The tinnitus loudness can be reduced by listening to this background sound. We also were worried about this background sound interfering with speech perception. So we measured their speech perception with and without the background sound. And 3 patients had a very significant loss of their speech perception when they were listening to a background sound that they thought might help with their tinnitus. So what that means is that these 3 patients would require some extra counseling. Maybe it wouldn't work for them. Maybe they could try a lower level or a different sound. It's also possible, of course, that they could turn the sound off when they were communicating and talking and listening. So there's lots of different options of using these background sounds for the cochlear implant patients. So now we'll go on to the AtHome Trial. So in the AtHome Trial, they had their chosen sound that they had picked in the clinic. And then for our control condition, we just played a noise at very, very quiet, so they could just barely hear this background noise. Now, we told them that we thought both of these sounds might be helpful. We wanted them to think that both of them might work, and we wanted to know if they did work and which one was better, but it was up to them to decide this. But we told them we expected both of these sounds to help. And then at the end of each week, they completed a survey of loudness and annoyance, the acceptability, and the tinnitus primary functions questionnaire. So the AtHome Trial indicated that this is the baseline, this is with their chosen sound and the study sound, and this is the annoyance. So again, it doesn't help everybody, but for several of these patients with the stars, they actually showed a great decrease in the annoyance of their tinnitus when they had this background sound on. So again, different for different patients and different degrees. We also measured their tinnitus loudness. They did this online at home. And again, many of them had a significant drop in their tinnitus loudness in their at-home trial. Listening to this background sound, it reduced the loudness of their tinnitus. For some, it was with both sounds, but it was certainly significant. And again, for some, a low-level background noise might be helpful. So lots of individual variabilities, but 8 out of 4 people who tried this said that their tinnitus loudness reduced at the at-home trial. We also asked them to rate the acceptability of these sounds. So for many of them, the acceptability was very high, over 50%. For a few subjects, they didn't want to listen to the sound. And we know this even from our hearing aid patients, that what most patients with tinnitus want is a pill. At this point, there is no pill, and these are cochlear implant patients who are being helped with their cochlear implant, and maybe we can help them also with sound therapy on their cochlear implant for their tinnitus. So in conclusion, there were lots of individual differences that we expected, and for many of them, the rain noise, the pink noise, and the waterfall sound were the most acceptable. But again, it's important to appreciate that everyone's different. We were able to reduce the tinnitus loudness by listening to these background sounds in 11 out of 18 patients. And 5 patients noted that their tinnitus went away after listening to these background sounds. And again, that's consistent with our experience with tinnitus patients. And then again, word recognition was not affected for most patients, and there are some things we can do to reduce the loudness or to turn the sound off when the person is communicating in those patients. The at-home trial, important to appreciate there are large individual differences. This is maybe not going to help everybody, but a sound therapy app can be helpful for many of these tinnitus patients with cochlear implants.
Can
reduce the loudness and annoyance by 50%, and the sounds are acceptable in more than 75% of the patients. Whoops. Can I go back one? So just to mention that we have our tinnitus conference in Iowa. This is a very old building in the United States, 1883. We have a tinnitus and hyperacusis conference and a barbecue and a square dance in a round barn. And this will be the 28th annual conference this June. I started this when I was 14 years old, approximately. Thank you.